This act, the presidential veto by Mr. Nixon on yesterday, will serve to deepen the resentment of the poor, and it will convince many black people that this is indeed a harsh act that marks their winter of discontent. One alternative is one that is always available to us in a democracy, and that is to express our dissatisfaction or our unhappiness with a given government program or with a given administration. That, of course, that alternative is always ours. What, as a result of the veto, black people will do in terms of making their political decisions, I'm not in a position to say, nor am I in a position to know. Yesterday by President Nixon of the legislation creating a comprehensive child development program, extending the Office of Economic Opportunity, and assuring a meaningful legal service program is a crushing blow to the deepest hopes and aspirations of black people and poor people in this country. The child care proposal especially would have been the vehicle for greater learning opportunities for young people, a lifting of unfair burdens upon working parents, and a long hoped for chance for re-entry into the labor force for mothers whose families need extra income. Rather than weakening the family, this legislation would have cemented thousands of poor families now being torn apart by economic stress, and the total cost of the program vetoed would have been a mere fraction of the huge tax cuts just distributed to wealthy individuals and corporations. That is the official reaction, empowerment of black people. We see that this legislation as hesitating and preventing that economic empowerment of black people, and we regret this veto very much. Beyond that, I'm pleased to be here to help the Los Angeles Urban League celebrate its 50th anniversary here in this EOD luncheon. I'm also in town to meet with the local executive directors in the Western region and here in California, who on a day-to-day basis administer the role of the National Urban League in the 1970s is the implementation and the realization of those rights and privileges that were obtained and conferred upon blacks in the 1960s. And that's what we had in the 1960s, a conferring of rights, a defining of rights of black people, an obtaining of rights that were literally, in my view, torn from a reluctant nation. And the issue is that white America now has an attitude, in my view, that what more do black folks want? We're doing things with them that we've never done before. We've made a bit of progress here and a bit of progress there. Now, what are they talking about now when they say equal opportunity? My view is that the National Urban League's opportunity now for service is that of making real the advances in civil rights in this country of the 1970s, so that the masses of poor people can take advantage of it. As I say in my talk today, in the 1960s, the issue for blacks was the right to ride the bus. Well, I think in the 1970s, the issue is the bus fare. The issue is where that bus is going. The issue is who's going to drive it and who's going to make the policy as to whether that bus service will facilitate Watts or whether it will facilitate other areas of where poor people and black people are concentrated. The issue in the 70s was the right to vote, and nobody in this country argued with the right to vote. But there is a question of whether or not there is a right of a black man to be mayor of Los Angeles. And I think that there are many people who would concede the right of blacks to vote, but do not concede the right of a black man to be mayor, to be state superintendent of education, or to be the lieutenant governor of New York, the governor of Mississippi. And so in the 1970s, I think we're talking about not only the right of black people to vote, that has been established, but we're also talking about the right of blacks to occupy major policy-making and administrative positions in our government.
If the presidential veto stands and there's no further action by the Congress, do you see any alternatives?
Well, I see that, the veto presents an opportunity to be overridden, which raises another area of how people at the local level would deal with those people who refuse to give the vote to override the veto. Here again, that is an alternative available to people at the local level. On the other hand, it seems to me that another alternative available to an agency like the Urban League is to try to do something to help those people who don't understand what the problem is as it relates to the issues in the veto, to understand it and to give them positions and information and some education about the needs of black people. Because I really think that the veto and the legislation and the attitude of the Congress is reflective of the attitude of white America. And I think that politicians at the local, state, national levels are reflecting that white people are weary of the black issue, and black people have now been put on the back burner in this country. And